Welcome back to Red Dirt Magnet Fishing. Today we are in Pawhuska, Oklahoma. Unfortunately, I had some audio difficulties, so I'm recording the audio in the editing session. This is Bird Creek, as I said, in Pawhuska, Oklahoma. It's a pretty wide creek at this section and not very deep, but we are going to find a lot of things here today. Let's get started. When I first started magnet fishing in Oklahoma, I thought, I'm going to find horseshoes all the time. Because, of course, you have that image of Oklahoma, land run, horses everywhere. I think this is only the second horseshoe I found in a couple of years. It's a little large, so it may be from the horseshoe game and not from an actual horse. Little bits of rebar or threaded bolts. Now, if not for these steel ball bearings, I wouldn't necessarily know what this round thing was, but I think it goes with the bearings. It was like a little thing that the bearing slides around in. These are very clean and shiny bearings, considering they've been in the water. I don't know if I pulled them out of the mud or if it's just the nature of what they were made from. They're like stainless steel that caused them to not rust or tarnish. The entire time I was out here, I think there were maybe only 2-3 throws where I didn't pull up something interesting. So I've tried to edit the video down to just the pulling out parts so that you don't have to watch as much, especially with the voiceover component. There is a railroad spike on one side of the magnet. It's pretty good condition. And then this, I thought maybe it was one of those parts that we often see around railroad tracks that holds the track down, but it's got teeth on both sides of it. So I think this is actually a part of a very large pipe wrench. The weather this day was supposed to get up to, I think, 98 degrees, but it had been raining in the morning, so it was still a little overcast. Nice cool breeze coming through, occasional sprinkles. Here we find another railroad spike. It's a little bent. And this part I thought was maybe a socket from like a spark plug, but it's not hollow on that end, so it wasn't really a socket. And then I noticed the other side it was threaded and had a couple of nuts on it. I'm not sure what this is or what it's from, but we'll keep it. More of these ball bearings. This one's probably the largest one we found so far. About ping pong ball size. Looks like a piece of rebar. Some nails. I've forgotten my bucket, which has the scraper attached to it. So I've edited out cleaning off the magnet as much as I could because there were a lot of little bits of wire, small nails, and that sort of thing that it's not as interesting, and it just takes a lot of time to clean off the magnet without a scraper. This was pretty heavy. Not sure what it was. I thought maybe just a piece of a pipe or something. But although you can see one end looks like it's got maybe concrete or compacted mud and stuff in it. The other side's not really open. It's maybe the end cap off of a piece of pipe or a sign post. I don't know. And some sorted metal bits, some nails, wires. This interested me. This little handle piece was just through the magnetism that passed through that metal bar was what held it on. Well, what we got here? Looks like just a piece of a bolt or maybe a bent rebar. Another railroad spike. Another railroad spike. And some threaded piece with a couple of square nuts on it. On the opposite side of the bridge, you could see there were these pylons, I guess, stone, concrete, where at one point there had been another bridge there. Might have been that was a train bridge, and that's why we're finding so many railroad spikes over here. I think I found more railroad spikes this day than I have my entire time of magnet fishing. So it's a really good spot if you're near Pawhuska, the Tulsa, Oklahoma area. Head down to this section of Bird Creek. Trying to be careful because it feels like you're pulling something, but when you're dragging across the bottom, or possibly rocks, you never know what's going to maybe knock whatever you're pulling off the magnet. There were some rather large rocks in the area. But here we are with another magnet full of stuff. Somebody was trying to walk behind me here. Try to be considerate of others using the area. That's a really bent railroad spike. Spark plug. Seems like we find a lot of spark plugs. Another railroad spike. Not quite sure what this was. It's a long, slender piece of metal. Square nut. Just assorted little bits and pieces. I always tend to get a little more cautious the heavier it feels when we're pulling, like we're dragging something heavier. Heavier doesn't always mean more interesting, but usually does. And this is certainly a mess full of assorted bits and bobs. I don't know if this is like a hook, and then there's a bolt that was attached to another bolt, the magnetism passing through the first one. I should have been a little more careful here with pulling some of those flakes and stuff off over the cart because I've got my coffee sitting right there. Some of these things I just have no idea what they are, but they're interesting to find. Another ball bearing. Try to clean up all the things that I drop along the way. There's another ball bearing. This one you can tell that's not as silver and shiny, so maybe it's not the stainless steel that kept those others from tarnishing. In this particular section, it felt like we were dragging something, almost like you're dragging something across concrete. Like if you've ever pulled in a hose across your driveway, it's kind of how it felt. Uh, every now and then I would hit a snag, so I don't know if there was an edge of a rock, if there was some of that old concrete down there with rebar in it. Another long, flat piece of metal. Another railroad spike. Mess of nails and wires. So many nails down there. You do want to make sure and clean off your magnet between throws as much as you can so that your next find gets a good connection. That same section I was talking about earlier where it felt like I was dragging across maybe concrete, but I kept snagging on something. I don't know if it's edges of rocks or if there's other metal down there that just didn't want to come up out of the mud. But it didn't seem to slow down our finds. We're still getting a good quantity of stuff out of the river or creek. It's a whole magnet full of stuff here. Another railroad spike. Or no, that one's not a spike. That's just a weird piece of metal. It wasn't very heavy, so I was surprised how strong it attached to the magnet. Good sized nails. Square nails are always interesting to me when we find them. This weird ring piece, I don't know what that was off of. Some twisted wire. I think this was part of an old fence signpost or fence post. If you want to get out magnet fishing, check out Kratos Magnetics. Use discount code REDDIRT for 12% off. I recently ordered a 360 magnet and it should be here shortly. Got a nice 12% discount on that. Put a link in the description down below. This pipe, I think it's got some conduit for wiring or something that goes across the creek. So I'm going to be careful not to hit that as we're magnet fishing. Don't want to cause any disruption to services or damage that I don't want to have to pay for. So many things on this magnet. Another railroad spike. It's a good shape. Doesn't even look like it had been struck. Strange pieces of metal. And this round thing, when I was pulling this up at first, I thought maybe it was a grenade or something, but I looked around a little bit and I think I figured out what it's from. I think at some point they replaced the railing on this bridge, and this is one of the top pieces like here that connects the poles, the handrails. Eye bolt maybe, another spark plug. Well, this little piece. At first I thought maybe it was some kind of a splitter for a water hose and split off into different branches, but I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's something else. Another what I thought was a piece of pipe, but it was not hollowed, so just a piece of metal. That looks like the end of a faucet, and so many nails and wires. Do recommend you invest in a scraper if you're going to magnet fish. Not all kits come with one, but I've been told you can find a little plastic piece like that at Dollar Tree. Definitely save you some time when it comes to picking off all these nails and save you from getting poked, maybe needing to get a tetanus shot. At this point, I was just amazed at how throw after throw, it seemed like we were always catching something good. Another railroad spike. And a big square nail. Tried to keep returning to the side because I felt something down there, but could never quite be sure what it was. We were pulling so many things out of that creek. Who's to say if we pulled out what I felt already, but it seemed like there's always more down there. I'm always amazed at how you can feel the vibrations as you pass things and drag across different objects. You can feel it in the rope as you pull it. Some kind of handle. I don't know if it's an ammo box or a barrel or something else. Piece of rebar, maybe? Another full magnet. I don't know what this was, but as I started to pull on that piece, it started to bend. I didn't want to break it and maybe stab myself, so we'll come back to it in a minute and get a better grip on it once we remove some of these other things that are sticking out. There's a little socket. Joke a little bit because it seems like every time we find a socket, it's a 10 millimeter. Got a better grip on this thing. I have no idea what this is. If you can identify any of the things that I can't, feel free to leave a comment. If you want to leave a timestamp for where in the video it is, it'll help us identify what you're identifying. A little bit of a spring, some old nails. I tried to get real close to this tree that's down there because I felt like maybe it had fallen on something, or there was be things that while washing down the creek had washed up against it and gotten stuck. Another good sized bent metal piece. Some leaves and stuff stuck in between the nails and wires and stuff in the magnet. I don't know what this metal cover off of something. I did stay on one side of this bridge because the other side didn't have a walkway and it's a rather narrow bridge, and traffic was heavy enough that I didn't feel like it was necessarily safe to go and try to fish from the other side. Not a high visibility area for those coming around the corner over the bridge, so I stayed on this one side. If you decide to go to the area and magnet fish, you're braver than I am. Who knows what you'll find on the other side? Do try to be safe though. And here we have another horseshoe. This one's larger than the one we found earlier. Definitely looks to me like what I remember the game of horseshoes, those coming with. If it was for an actual horse, I'd hate to see a horse that size. It would probably trample me. It's a bit of chain. And another spark plug. Right, I saw sticking out of the rocks over here something that was not in the water. Or at least I couldn't tell that part of it was in the water. But it definitely felt like I could just swing out and grab it and pull it out of the rocks. And it worked. It pulled right out. A little heavier than it looked. A good sized piece of pipe. See, it's got like mud and rocks and stuff in there, so I can give it a few taps on the bridge and shake out as much as we can. If there's anybody living in there, I want to make sure they get back in the water. Some twisted metal, like maybe from barbed wire fence, possibly. Another washer or nut or something there. All right, that's it for this section of Bird Creek for Pawhuska from Red Dirt Magnet Fishing. Like, subscribe, click on the bell icon to get notifications for new videos when they come out, and come back and see us next time. Our next video will be continuing our exploration of Pawhuska, but we'll see you then. Hopefully we'll have better audio quality for that video.